I'm not sure when it happened. I may have been sleeping through the whole process, but one thing that's starting to slip away from my grasp is driving good old sedans, and one thing that's replacing them is something like the one that lies behind me. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Robertson. Now, back in the day of early test drives, I remember numerous sedans and even better, big ones and gas guzzlers. Now, well, most of the sedans are cute and cuddly and, well, far and few between. What's replacing them are small crossover SUVs that may be called sedans sometime close down the road. So what is it that's taking the place of sedans? Well, it's offerings like this, the 2019 Buick Encore, delivering just a little bit of SUV and, well, just a little bit of sedan. And, well, we used to call them crossovers, and now I just call them sport compact SUV slash not a sedan slash not what I remember. But I guess it's where we're headed. Now, I'm not a big fan of anything small, and, well, you've heard it 1,000 times over. I just like bigger is better. But this is fitting the equation for people who just don't like land yachts and, well, want to get away from sedans because they just like the utility side of things. Now, that's what the Encore does well. Now, looking over the overall size, of course, it's squatty, it's compact. That helps it, well, feel like a sedan. Well, as for the roof height, well, it's way up here, which makes it feel like an SUV. So you're getting the best of all the worlds, just kind of in this exterior quality. Now, I may have misspoke when I said exterior quality, but what I meant was exterior design. Of course, Buick, in my opinion, well, delivers the quality. You can see that in the refinement on the interior. Now, I was a Buick owner way back in the good old days, owning a Buick Regal 2-door, which I thought was kind of cool and sporty during my high school days. And, well, Buick is known for maybe being more of a mature lineup, maybe a mature individual sitting. So I, of course, thought I was fairly mature, even at the ripe age of 16. Now, looking at this is technically an EPA class of an SUV. I think of SUV as being, well, just a hair bigger, but let's put compact in the beginning of that name. So maybe a CUV, compact utility vehicle. Now, by the numbers, it definitely measures up that way. Around about 100 inches when it comes to wheelbase, 168 inches overall. Now, as for the height, around about 5.5 feet tall and just a smidge over that when it comes to width. Great numbers and, well, really kind of minimizing the overall size when it comes to this SUV, making it feel, well, definitely more like a sedan. So when it comes to a CUV, what it comes down to is there's only so much minimal acreage you can design, and what you eventually get is what you see here. Very somewhat arching roof line, giving you great cathedral-like feel on the inside. Modest ground clearance, a little bit better than a typical sedan, but overall a kind of cute and cuddly exterior. Now, Buick does it very regal-like, basically keeping the exterior not chiseled like we see on some of the competition, but somewhat refined. Now, one thing I do notice is it does have kind of a high-waisted midline, and of course that's due a little bit to the ground clearance, basically making it look like the car has its pants pulled up too high. But the architecture does sweep it to the back, kind of giving it a fluid-like look as it sweeps up. Now, there is a little bit of a ridge right through here, giving a little bit of sculpting effect. Now, as you sweep to the back, the design looks similar to maybe even the Nissan Murano we remember years back, with a typical rear end that's basically modest glass, pretty much straightforward design. There's only so much you can do. I do like the fact that we extended the roofline with this implied spoiler, really giving it kind of an elongated look here at the back end. But as for the silhouette design, we've seen it across the board. Now, back here, going to see pretty much a body color all the way around, minimizing the chrome to a simple effect of basically the appointments here and there. I think anytime you take a small SUV like this and bling it out too much, it just looks a little bit too cheesy. But let's look at one big feature that comes with smaller SUVs, and that's right here at the back end. Now, one big area on this small CUV has to be here at the back end, the good old utilitarian side of things. And one reason why people that own sedans and are running to this market is particularly because of this area. It delivers so much more compared to your average sedan. And, well, heck, with the drivability of these vehicles, with this added, well, it outshines sedans all day long. Now, first, before we dive inside, let's look at the safety. Now, backup camera, of course, included, but I also like the fact that it has backup sensors. basically really allowing people that aren't used to maybe a few blind spots or maybe this somewhat modest rear glass that aren't used to that, well, they're going to make it so much easier with the safety built in. Now, lastly is what lies beneath here, specifically great cargo room. Now, with this up out of the way, what you're going to see is around about 18 cubic feet of space. That compared to the average sedan, which could be 14, 15 truly being on bigger sedans. If it should be something as compact as this, you might even be into 10, 12, 13. So this right here is truly what a utilitarian vehicle like this can deliver. And even better, as you transform the cargo, laying those second row seats down, what's going to almost more than triple to around about 48 cubic feet. Much easier to actually work with, and of course the overall height gives you a lot more options when carrying bigger items. Now let's look in here just a little bit more. What you're going to see first off is this kind of rigid tonneau cover. Now what's great is it rises to the occasion, and just to show you just a little bit, you can take these off, and this is what it looks like when it's in place. Really give you a nice secure. Now interestingly, on my own personal vehicle, I have to take this out quite a bit on my bigger Tahoe because it has a retractable one, but it's great to have this in place, especially around the holidays when you have tons of Christmas gifts or whatever in here. This truly covers up. Now this is more of a rigid platform, so it really almost makes kind of a shelf. Now it's not going to be a huge amount of weight you can put up here, but when things are hidden, you could maybe put some extra gear up here. It gives you kind of a two-tier system. Now of course that's going to swing up out of the way with the operation of the rear hatch. Now looking at the overall design, pretty much nice and square, and with the overall design of the back, it doesn't arch too much into the vehicle, which basically means as bigger items get in here, typically on something with a little bit more kind of curve or whatever here at the back, that's going to be compromised because the box just can't sit straight. Basically that box is going to be about right here, but as you fold these seats, gives you lots of area. Now there are also some little compartments here on this side as well as over there. Now the one thing with the extra height off the ground of this vehicle, what you're going to find is actually some great storage underneath the cargo floor, not specifically for extra gear, but better yet, a nice simple spare. Also what you'll notice is the good old subwoofer positioned right in the middle. Now what does it take to get this vehicle going down the road? Well, thankfully it's a modest engine that puts fuel economy first, long before any type of impressive growl. Even better, it all does it with a modest purr like you hear, and then a hiss when you hit the gas. And it's all because of a nice 1.4 liter turbocharged inline four cylinder. Now it's going to deliver around about 153 horses and 177 foot-pounds of torque. Now all that equates to basically decent fuel economy, averaging somewhere between 23 to 34 miles per gallon, depending on if you equip with a front-wheel drive or, as you see, all-wheel drive. Now, there are several options in this vehicle that I truly like, and it all starts with what you see here. Getting the vehicle going, especially like on a cold morning, a cold night like it is, and the way you can do that is with the remote start. Simply lock it up, press and hold it. That's really nothing new. Even better though, is if you get in the vehicle, crank it up, and then you maybe got to run back inside. One thing I always want to do is secure it, because even though I have the key fob, do we want anybody really getting into the vehicle when we're not around it? But what I like is this vehicle can simply lock up when the vehicle is running. And that's one thing I have found is sometimes that is actually a difficult process, getting the vehicle locked. Not every vehicle is created equal, but this one simply can lock up when you're not around it with it running. Now, of course, when you come back, ingress is real easy. The way Buick does that is providing an access button at every entry point, right down to the rear hatch, and of course the four doors. Not every vehicle does that either. Most of them simply putting a button at the front doors only. Now what that means is basically I can walk up, come right to the back door, press it, and go right in. Other vehicles make it a two-step process. Unlock here, come back here, whatever. This, so much better, and of course, simpler. Now, one area where the Encore truly measures up is on the inside, and it really contrasts the compact exterior. What I'm referring to really is the legroom numbers and the overall cathedral-like feel. Now, roundabout up front, it's about 40 inches of legroom. Backseat driver's going to get about 35. Good numbers. Now, for my 6-foot-plus frame, that means I'm pretty much going to the max with the seating position, pretty much leaving that average the same. Now, for shorter drivers, back seat passenger is going to average just a couple more clicks, maybe 37, but pretty good comfort. Now, what's great about SUVs in general is a little bit more bird's eye view, of course, with the ground clearance and really the captain chairs like feel you get in SUVs versus sedans. That really gives you more of a vertical feel. Sedans, you know, make you feel like you're sitting a little bit lower and stretched out. Now let's look at kind of the entertainment and the layout of this vehicle. Sweeping across the dash, one of the first things you'll truly notice is the touchscreen system, and these are really getting intuitive and innovative. In my Link, the GM systems have really been the leader when it comes to color, design, really innovations with interaction with a driver or passenger. Now, one note that with me stretched about as far back as the legroom will allow, this is kind of an arm stretch away, but really not too far. Now, what I like is the kind of integration and how it operates. Now, first off, with touchscreens, really going to be minimal buttons. That's really kind of decreasing the clutter with buttons and so on. This being fairly simple, nice knob, tune select, and the home button. Now, what I like about the home button is it's there when you lose your way. So you can get back to the home screen, find the settings, whatever it may be, and scroll through. Now, typically I just leave it on audio. Real easy to use, nice shortcuts down below. And of course, you do have some shortcut buttons up as well at the top. Now, down below is going to be the climate control, about the only area that has a little bit of clutter, but really just the buttons to use. Now, first off, dual zones, really dial specific when it comes to almost temperature. Now, interestingly, this does not interact with the screens. It's just something we see a lot where you can turn this and the exact temperature will be up above. Now, what you really will see is kind of some indicators of red and blue, real simple to use. Now, one thing I would prefer is I'm not a big fan of the push button. Really just 3 centralized knobs. Really fan speed is just a hair easier to control versus finding this toggle as you're going down the road. Now, all the other mode selects are here as well. Do have heated seats for both front occupants and the mode selects right across the top. I talked about some safety earlier with the backup cameras, but one thing I like is what you see here, parking sensor. You can turn that on and off, as well as lane departure. Now, I haven't used this as of late on a lot of vehicles, just tends to be more aggravating than not, but of course having it there is just a nice feature. Now, swinging down to the middle, automatic transmission, and once that swings out of the way, what you will see is this little storage area. It reveals nice compartment, real easy to use, and can store pretty much any size device. Now, even better is connectivity in the form of 2 USBs and a standard power jack and an auxiliary jack as well. Now, the only awkward part you can find on this vehicle is maybe between the front occupants, especially when the passenger tries to use their elbow support. Well, because it's just not there. Typically with these compacts, you're going to get a driver-specific elbow rest, but for the passenger, it just doesn't happen. Now, interestingly, if they get in or are used to one, well, they're going to try to put their hand here and just slips away because there's just nothing there. Now, what you'll find is actually a lower compartment that if you did have dual armrests, well, this would be covered. Now, even better, it does hide away if you don't want to see the operation of anything that lies beneath. And we also do have dual cup holders up front. Now, they do have a little bit of gripper here, so you can put some drinks in there and it holds them quite nicely. For the gauge cluster, one thing you'll see is standard analog tach and speedometer, but it does have a nice huge digital readout there in the middle just below the fuel gauge. Now, this is really great because it really allows you to get a lot of up-to-date information, but most specifically is a digital readout for speed, something I look for on all vehicles, and this one has it. But you can go through various functions, see what you're looking for. This does have navigation, which can be viewed right here in this cluster as well. Now, if you notice, I am in drive, and one thing I want to test out is a feature that I find cumbersome on some other vehicles, and they will remain nameless because they're competition to this vehicle. But one thing to note is just when the vehicle's in drive, and let's say you're going down the road, should you come into a slippery situation where you're in a ditch, the vehicle's still in drive, but you need to get out, maybe it's just a flooded little area and you want to get out of the vehicle. One thing I've found is just for safety, how do you get out of the vehicle? Because after all, everything is just the old electronics where you kind of have to toggle unlock lock. In some cases it's up here. Also, in most cases it's dark. You just can't see like you see here. But what you're always going to reach for is the handle. And one thing I've noticed on a couple of other manufacturers is this doesn't operate like normal. And in the case of the Buick, what's great is for safety, if you pull once, the door just won't open. However, if you pull again, this will automatically open. Now notice that I'm still in drive, so naturally I don't want to get out at this point, but let's say you're just in a kind of an accident situation, no one's injured, but you need to get out for safety. That is a nice feature that really allows you to kind of easily double pull this handle to get out. One thing some manufacturers just aren't doing. Swinging to the back seat, one thing to talk about is the difference between front occupants, because me as a driver, one thing I'll notice is that leg room is fairly tight, but if you notice, the passenger was pulled forward just a hair, giving backseat riders just a little bit more breathing room. And even better, when you go to kind of a compact utility like this, one thing you will minimize is that traditional hump down there in the floor. What's great is there's actually barely a little ridge there, so there's plenty of room for 3 occupants should you find the need to put 3 in here. Now what you'll also find is a little bit of comfort both in the overall feel of the cushioning, nice leather, individualized attention on the outside, modest offering there in the middle. Even better if you only have 2 in the back, nice elbow support in this elevated armrest, as well as dual cup holders, and they even have that good old springy cushiony material to keep the drinks in place. That does for this edition of Road Warrior and a test drive behind the wheel of the 2019 Buick Encore all-wheel drive that makes us rethink, well, how sedans fit into our world, and well, how utilitarian vehicles do it so much better. So is this the new way of thinking with sedans? Well, an afterthought? Well, probably more than likely. With this is where we're headed, and sedans maybe being just kind of one of those things people look at and go, how do we ever get by? Especially considering it does it so much better here at the back end than any trunk I've ever tried to squeeze things into. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.